got you there was your use of OMB's Portfolio Stat reviews. Would you tell us a little bit more about them? How did they result in savings? But perhaps you can outline some of the savings that actually were incurred from engaging in this exercise. And what are you doing? What's the next phase look like?
Yeah, Portfolio Stat, when I came on board into OMB in 2011 as federal CIO, I couldn't tell you in those days, how much an email box should cost in government, or how much a unlimited voice data and text plan should cost for a mobile device. We were really focused at that time on how are we, really kind of shocking the system, and through this mechanism we called the 25-point plan to reform IT was all about kind of these very common sense steps on moving the ball forward, but most of the focus at that time was on kind of individual investments. It was about this or that project and looking at those projects at a granular level. What we weren't doing, and where I saw that needed to evolve, and this is all about building on, standing on the shoulders of that work, because you can't do any of these things standalone. You have to build upon them and make them evolutionary. Was really about, okay, we're being very smart about the individual investments. How do we look across the portfolio to understand what the agency is doing, and are they using technology in the best possible way? And what you would see is that when you looked across the portfolio, you'd see some things that just weren't compatible or normal that you'd maybe see in the private sector. Some agency like Department of Agriculture, for example, was running 21 email systems, and which is unthinkable in the private sector. Run 21. It's a large organization. Yes. It grew up kind of in a standalone, siloed way, which is ironic for the Department of Agriculture to be silos. But
no pun intended.
No pun intended. Pun completely intended, actually. So they set about through the process of being smart about their portfolio, consolidating them, and they've moved to one email system. There's one way to buy a computer. There's one way to get mobile devices, and covering all the carriers and all that sort of stuff, which has saved tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for the department, and getting people's arms around their portfolio is really the first ingredient of really managing kind of a new state of delivering service inside your agency. And it speaks to the relationship of the CIO with the other C-level functions in the department. It speaks to building services within your agency to allow people to build new things in a more consistent way. It speaks to many aspects of how you actually end up running an organization. And Portfolio Stat was really designed as a mechanism to one, in a very data-driven way, gather information about an agency and really shine a light on things that need to be improved for them through these key performance indicators that are sort of built into Portfolio Stat. And two is, it's really about both a face-to-face aspect. So we sit down once a year with the deputy secretary of the agency and all the C-level functions and have a very honest conversation about where they are. But also we design Portfolio Stat to be evolutionary. So we wanted it every year to change and to evolve and kind of keep pace with where the agency was. So there's still agencies out there that have more than one email system, and we're still working with them on kind of bringing them to where they need to be. There's others that have consolidated, done a great job, and we've kind of moved down the value chain, and we're talking more deeply about things. The other benefit of Portfolio Stat was that it for us produced a tremendous amount of data that we can now do comparative analysis around, and we've built a capacity in my team to actually analyze that data and process it in a way that I can now tell you how much an unlimited voice data and text plan should cost. I can tell you, which has driven GSA, the General Services Administration, to do new contracts in that space to allow lower cost and use our buying power there. We can tell you other things about sort of these commodity level IT investments. I can then show up at a Portfolio Stat and sit across from a deputy secretary and say, I found $25 million for you. You just need to run a paperwork exercise to go consolidate these contracts or do this or that. And that's a great place to start having a conversation that then bridges into how are you going to be more effective?
Yeah.
And Portfolio Stat 2014, and the conversation really centers around effectiveness. How are we both expanded the work of Portfolio Stat through the management side of OMB to focus on other data-driven factors in their broader management portfolio outside of IT, so real property, their people costs, their HR costs, things like that, as well as looking at what are the most important investments that are in front of this agency to meet their mission, and how are they using technology to get there? And that's where smarter IT then lays into the work of the agencies.
And